Hi guys, it's Nancy, and today I wanted to do a little experiment with heat embossing and what kind of things I can use or you can use when you're doing heat embossing. So I have old dryer sheets. I have the ever popular EK Success powder tool. I have the anti-static powder, which is what I believe is inside this tool, but this is from the company the powder keg, anti-static powder, powder keg embossingpowders.com. So I believe that's what's inside there. And then we're going to make one out of cornstarch. So let's start by making one out of cornstarch. I do apologize, I do not have the embossing bag, the embossing buddy. To be honest with you, I did have it, and then I got this little guy, and so I donated my embossing buddy to somebody else. So all I'm doing here is just opening this box of cornstarch. A little messy. And I have a clean stocking. I guess pantyhose is what you would call it. So I'm just going to kind of grab that there. And then I have a measuring spoon, and I'm just going to take, for this experiment, I'm just going to take 1 tablespoon of the cornstarch. Alright, and I'm just going to put that in the stocking here. Alright. Put that aside. Alright, so we have plenty of cornstarch there. Oh yeah, it's coming through. I'm going to twist this, guys, and I'm actually going to double it up because there is a lot coming up here. You know what? I'm just going to tie this. Yeah, it's all over my desk. I'm going to double this up. So twist this, and then we're going to wrap it again here. So that way we have 2 layers of the fabric. And then I'm just going to tie this into a knot. And we have our own makeshift embossing buddy. And I'm just going to cut off the end. Alright, so there we go. So it's just an old pantyhose, nylon, and we put the cornstarch in there. I'm just cleaning up my desk here. Alright, so what I did was just marked this paper, and I have not done anything to this paper. It's just a piece of paper I grabbed. It's a scrap piece, and I marked with it the EK Success, which I'm going to use here, the dryer sheets, the cornstarch bag we made, and then the anti-static powder. And then I have a little stamp here we're going to use, and I'm going to use for this experiment the ink that most of us use, which is Versamark ink, but a lot of you have embossing ink. Any kind of clear sticky ink will work, but usually Versamark or embossing ink are what most people use when they're heat embossing. So I'm going to take each area and wipe them down. So we have the EK Success tool. And a lot of people like this because it does get into the finer cracks of areas. It's contained, so you're not making a huge mess. It does kind of smell like baby powder to me, guys. It has a almost a perfume smell to it. So I don't know exactly what's in here, but there is a slight smell to it. But I like, again, that you put the lid on it, put it away, and there's no residue coming out of it. The dryer sheet, this is just a dryer sheet that I pulled out of the dryer that was used, so most of the wax is taken off. But again, it's an anti-static item that you use. So we're just going to rub this side with the dryer sheet. Okay. Down here we're going to use our little cornstarch pouch. I'm going to pat that down so we have, ooh, got some cornstarch there. And then the last thing is the anti-static powder. And I just have a little brush. I'm just going to grab a little bit of that, almost like a makeup brush. You can see that on there. And I'm just going to tap that into place here. Alright, so let's see how these things work with heat embossing. And I'm trying to hold the paper down the same spot so we know that my fingerprints are in the same area there. All right, so that's all stamped. I'm going to use this Zing embossing powder in fluorescent purple because I thought it would show up nicely. And another trick, guys, is to use coffee filters. These are very inexpensive. You get like $1 million to the bag. So it's just an easy way to clean up. There are trays you can buy, or you can just put a folded piece of copy paper underneath if you wanted to. And again, I'm just trying to hold that middle area. All right, I am going to show you guys before I heat it. I don't know if you can tell. I will say the EK Success tool, there is very little residue on the outside of that stamp. The dryer sheet, you can see there is residue. There's spots on the outside. Nothing major. You would just grab a small paintbrush and kind of, you know, flick that out of the way there. But there's a lot of the powdery residue on the outside there. The anti-static powder is pretty good. Again, there's a little bit of residue there. And the cornstarch did okay. I mean, there's not a lot of coverage. Maybe I didn't stamp it right, but it's okay. If I didn't have anything and I was a beginner stamper just starting out, hey, this cornstarch tool worked out okay. So none of them actually look too bad. The dryer sheet, I would say, is a 4. So I would say EK Success is a 1. Cornstarch would be my second choice. Anti-static powder would be my third. And the fourth would be the dryer sheet. And I don't know if you guys can see, there is like powdery residue here. Not just the actual embossing powder itself, but the pigment color, I guess you could say. So let's heat it up and see what happens. And I'm going to heat my heat tool up rather quickly here. So I apologize for the noise, guys. All right. Okay, guys, so the embossing powder is now fully melted. And again, it's very clean with the EK Success tool. I would probably, if I were using this on a project, I would probably stamp it again, just so I have a more full coverage. But the EK Success tool did very good. The dryer sheet, none of that extra residue on the outside actually stuck down, so we're good there. There was just that little speck there that I didn't get off. The cornstarch bag, again, none of that extra residue stuck down. And then there's the anti-static powder tool, or powder, I guess. So in my opinion, guys, I don't really think you need to buy anything special or fancy unless you want to. If you're just starting out with heat embossing, you can start out with a dryer sheet. It's okay if you have that small paintbrush that you can flick off the extra embossing powder. The anti-static powder, if you see this, I bought it at a scrapbooking show or stamping show. If you wanted to use this to refill your EK Success tool, I would imagine that it's going to work fine. And I know I had mentioned an odor with the EK Success tool. This has no smell to it at all, guys. It doesn't say what it is. It just says not for internal use, 1 ounce jar, acid free, keep dry. Yeah, it doesn't say, but I guess if you wanted to use this, I believe this comes open and you could refill it with this if you don't like the smell in this. I can tell you I've had this for probably 2 years, and it's still pretty full, so this does last a very, very long time. And then, of course, you can make your own, so now I have a little embossing buddy bag again. And again, that was just plain old regular cornstarch in your kitchen counter inside an old nylon, wrapped it up twice, and just rubbed it on there. So there you go, guys. There's my comparison for heat embossing. I love heat embossing. It makes sentiment stand out. It just makes things look really nice. It has that raised effect, the shiny effect there too. And you can get, there's even some new matte embossing powders I've seen out there. There's holographic embossing powders, there's glitter embossing powders, so there's a whole bunch out there. I think the one that most people use is the clear embossing powder because you can use that over colored ink. Just as a little tidbit, if there was an embossing color you didn't have that you would have liked to have had, a really simple trick that I learned a long time ago was you can take any color ink, and dye inks usually dry pretty quickly. But you can ink up your image, and let's say I wanted a blue embossed image, but I didn't have blue embossing powder to match, and dye inks dry pretty quickly. So I'm not going to really be able to emboss this with any kind of powder because it's already dry. It's not, the powder's not going to stick. So the secret is to take your stamp and clean it off, and to re-stamp the image in the same area. And now apply your clear embossing powder. And then what that's going to do once you dry it is the clear embossing powder obviously is over the ink. It looks like your image has been embossed in that blue ink color embossing powder. So clear is always the way to go. You want the fine detail powder if you're doing sentiments or fine details. And then you can match any color that you have with ink. So that's my comparison video for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and keep on stamping.